All right, we're live and don't quite have a quorum yet, but Wayne, do you happen to know where the rest of
No.
your Mercer County brethren are?
No, I don't, to be honest with you. I haven't had a chance to talk to them last week or so.
But I do know, Jamie texted me earlier. He's said he would not be able to be here, Baxter Gate, because he was involved in some contract tracing going on at center and all that right now that's live and going on. I do want to get started, but I want to wait a little bit longer. I know we're being taped right now. We don't have Judge Dedman and Attorney Dean from Mercer County, which we want to have, and so we'll kind of tap dance here a little bit until they show up. But at the request of the Joint Jail Transition Committee, we invited counsel from the Kentucky Association of Counties, Rich Ornstein, to come and address both of us on this group as a entity to discuss the 20-plus-year-old joint jail interlocal agreement. So, Chris, if you have anything to say, but Rich is here today, and we all know Rich, and he is an absolute wealth of knowledge for us. Always has been, and it continues to be, and so I'm just hopeful that we have some other people show up, because the last meeting, John, I think you watched on YouTube, and you were complimentary that it was moving forward, and that's what we want to try and do. Chris, you got any comments you would like to make while we're waiting on some others to show up?
No, I mean, other than, I've spoken with Rich on, he's reviewed the interlocal agreement that we have with Mercer, and I think he agrees that there are some tweaks that can be done to make it better. But I don't really want to say anything much more than that right now until he gets a chance to speak.
Judge, since we're in an informal setting at this point, but we have an audience out there viewing us, I'd just like to reiterate the level of cooperation and collaboration in our last, actually, 3 sessions that we've been together, and I know that we're making great progress on this.
Well, I feel the same way, Master Ellis, and I think it's important. This agreement that has been there since the creation of the detention center as it stands right now has been beneficial to both Mercer and Boyle County over the years, and from different perspectives. I think with some minor tweaks, and we haven't really got into those. We talked about some language last time that might consider being stricken or altered in some degree. But I believe, as I said last time, I want to address the concerns of our jailer so that we don't impede his constitutional responsibilities whatsoever. And I believe we're headed toward doing that exactly. Did you get a call out to see where?
Yeah, I got in touch with Judge. He's leaving Harrisburg now.
Okay. Sounds like my schedule sometimes. So Wayne, do you have any comments you'd like to make while we're kind of waiting on everybody else to show up?
No, not really. I've been at the last few meetings and been real impressed on the coordination and cooperation between the 2 counties, and needless to say, look forward to that to continue. So.
Well,
it's been good.
It has been good.
Yeah.
It has been good. I'm looking forward to it continuing also. So, You know anything about Ted's agenda or anything?
Miller said he was going to call him on the way over here.
Okay. Well, I hate to delve into it too much, Rich, until Mercer is more in force here. You got anything we can talk about generally?
My suspicion is if we start now, we're just gonna do this again in
Yeah.
15 minutes.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I think you're right.
As I mentioned to you, I talked to both county attorneys Friday and Monday, and I think probably it'd be premature to go
Okay.
forward right now.
Rich may not be aware, and since it's public knowledge and front page, top of the fold a couple of days ago, we've had our first couple of COVID patients and inmates in our detention center. But I was reassured again yesterday in talking with both Brian Wolford and Chad Olderman that we're going above and beyond all the CDC and other regulations, coordinating with our health
And
department here
DOC,
locally.
DOC.
And you may know more about it, Judge, than I do, but we're doing it right.
Oh, yeah, we're doing it right, and in fact, I believe that General Wolford has had probably the model program that KYDOC is looking to share with other, like institutions across the state, because I know that you called and talked to them, and were questioned back off your professional career, and every question you came up with, I think Brian and Chad had an answer to that they'd already responded to.
I was almost embarrassed for asking because he had it all covered. He was so intuitive that he had staff going up on the roof and spraying into the intake and exchange with some disinfectants.
And it's, to be honest, the fact that you're just now having your first 2 cases is an awful lot
Yeah.
for what you all have done, what he's done at the jail.
And the unfortunate thing is, one of them didn't self-identify until they checked him in. So,
And I would say I talked to Chad Holderman this morning, and they're COVID-free at the jail again. All the persons that came in with the COVID are not in the jail anymore, and they were isolated anyways
Right.
from the other population. So we're good to go with the jail again.
Did they time out, or, I mean, I'm missing a piece of connectivity there, I suppose. Where are they?
Well, we actually,
Back
the
to
person
that,
that came in previously, the Boyle County Sheriff's Office assisted Mercer County in the arrest. It was actually a Mercer County
Resident
person. A couple people came in together, only one actually
was
was
positive.
positive for it. After looking over their case and so forth, they received they were bonded out, so
Okay.
they're out.
Okay. Okay.
Quarantining. We actually thought it was Boyle County at first, so my assistant Patrick Barsotti helped me. He prepared an order releasing them, but then saying that they had to go quarantine for 14 days, and we found out it actually wasn't Boyle County. We just thought it was because our sheriff's office was involved, so we sent that information, sent the order over that we had prepared, and shared it with Ted Dean to save him some work, and we were able to get those persons out. And then the other there's another person, and we worked through that too. I think that person also had a holder out of Hardin County for a failure to appear, something like that.
This was pretty much all nonviolent, I think, isn't that correct?
I think they're nonviolent, it's just people who have drug issues, and
Yeah.
that's about everybody at our jail. I'm saying everything's related, even if they're not charged with a drug crime, if shoplifting or a traffic offense or whatever. 9 times out of 10, it's probably got some kind of drug affiliation. It's really sad right now. That's what those persons had, some type of drug activity, possession, or whatever.
Mr. Kaywood, you got any comments?
Sir, I'm here to listen. Just listen to you.
Well, I appreciate it because you know, this interlocal agreement has been there since, I forgot, is it 98 or something, somewhere around there?
97.
97?
Stamped here, filed February the 18th, 97.
97. And, we haven't done bad for 23 years.
When you consider we were plowing new ground back then, it turned out pretty good.
Well, the one thing that kind of impressed me, Wayne, I don't think you were here the day we had the fiscal court, that the former Judge Wilder came in and presented to us, and he gave us some history.
Yeah.
Because he was part of the originator of this agreement. Well, what is currently going on, and I know from past, and Rich, you might be able to add to this, that both the Bevan administration and the Bashir administration are looking to replicate, to some degree, more collaborative efforts between counties in a non-regional, but to help each other and to grow together to do things to help provide services in a more viable way by doing exactly what Joint Jail has done for the past 23 years.
Do I have to press the button? Or is
Nope,
it-
you don't have to do anything but talk.
The General Assembly, the last two sessions, has stressed to us, stressed to, I believe, the League of Cities, that they would like to see more interlocal cooperation agreements, more examples, as times are not where they were 20 years ago financially, ways that counties and cities, and any combination thereof, can work together more efficiently, more economically, not just in this area. I mean, I think Kentucky has approximately 80 jails already, so there aren't that many more. But in all sorts of areas, whether it's, we oftentimes see counties and cities, especially smaller cities in Kentucky, where they don't necessarily have the resources that you all do. And I realize, I mean, you all have cities here that don't have the same resources you all do. And whether it's with roads or things of that nature, which is quite common. And also, we've seen counties work together where maybe there's a road on the far edge of the county. It's closer to the road barn in the neighboring county, and you all will do agreements. They're looking for more of those because it's just more efficient.
Both your comments and Chris's obviously relating to the drug problem that we have all throughout society. Breaking news yesterday, State Representative Kim King, just our neighbors again in Mercer County, posted that St. Catherine's College has now been leased for, I believe, 10 years with a complete drug treatment program, from admissions to training to job skills to all the health issues related. And that could be extraordinary in terms of that collaborative across the county line cooperation that we desperately need, because I was thrilled to see that on the internet last night, and you have to credit her for helping to negotiate that long-term lease. Tremendous campus if you've ever been on it. I've been on it several times, and they have all the facilities, including the dormitories and everything else that will be needed to carry that out. And it's a stunningly positive thing in terms of drug treatment.
That sounds like, really, truly, that's going to be an excellent use for that
Absolutely.
ground.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how they were going to repurpose those buildings and facilities, but that's pretty imaginative. Right there.
Very innovative. Yeah.
Did anybody from in-state purchase or lease it, or?
I didn't recognize the land organization that actually owns the property, but I can probably find who those folks are as long as the judge isn't here.
Well, they've got a lot of facilities, and
Oh, it's tremendous.
with those dorms there and those classrooms and everything else, so that'd be an excellent repurpose of what's there. And it needs to be done now, because the longer that sits vacant, the more, detrimental impact it would have on the infrastructure. But I really believe that there is strength in collaboration, and it is an efficiency kind of thing. where we can increase our effectiveness, we're providing better services at a lower cost to all of our constituents. You know, and there's other opportunities, I believe, that Judge Dedman and I have talked about, which I won't go into great detail here, but we're exploring other interlocal opportunities where, because we're so close, and the infrastructure and the needs are very similar because of our geographic and demographic. So why not even discuss it and talk about those kinds of things that make us all better? But, well,
Judge, this organization is called Addiction Recovery Care, and they're reporting that they have 30 rehab facilities in 17 Kentucky counties. Are you aware of them?
I don't recall exactly which group this is. We had some discussions with the group a couple years ago for this type of project. I don't know if it's still these folks or not, but to do something like this, you have to have experience, and it sounds like they do.
Well,
because you're not just going to get people from Central Kentucky.
Here's what Representative King
areas.
put in their news release. The group offers a full continuum of care, including detox, residential, transitional, intensive, outpatient care, medically assisted treatment, vocational rehab, and job training. So it's a comprehensive program, and hopefully with the fact that they're in 17 counties with 30 rehab facilities, it will be a real boon to us in all the surrounding counties, because that's in close proximity to us, and certainly to Mercer as well.
I'm familiar with the ARC. I was actually talking to them yesterday about trying to find somebody that's in our court system that's actually gone to rehab there. But yes, they had so many places, it was hard to figure out which facility this person was in. I know they have a lot in eastern Kentucky, and actually there's the place where this ARC's was located is in, I think it was Letcher County, is in Neon, Kentucky.
I know Neon.
So that was where one of them was located, but there's many more.
well, how far out do you think they are?
I'd say they should be here in a couple minutes.
Okay. Rich, you got anything else over in the general nature? How Keiko, are you still doing distant or non-traditional work from home, or how's the staff at Keiko doing? And I know you stay busy all the time.
Yeah, it was
Home or not.
Well, our executive director, Jim Henderson, was a longtime Simpson County judge executive, and actually stepped down as judge to come to Keiko. He's a very traditional judge executive, probably similar to you, Judge Hunt. And so he did not believe in work from home before March. Did not think it would work. And when we had to go home in March, and we didn't come back till, I guess, May, working split shifts every other week, or in the office split shifts, we didn't really miss a beat. Nowadays, with a couple monitors and a desk, you can work from anywhere. Phones are leashes. So I think our folks were very, I think Jim was very, very surprised at how much we could get done. Since then, we're working 4 days in the office, and if you're able, because there's some people that can't, the reception clerk obviously has to be at the office. You can work 1 day from home. So for example, when I finish here, I'm going to just head back to the house because it's closer, and work from my office at home. And it's funny, and I was a little surprised, you sort of forget what time it is. You've worked home for a long time. About 1 o'clock during the day, she'll say, "Hey, did you remember to eat lunch?" I was like, "No, I didn't eat lunch," which is a surprise looking at me. But you surprise how much more you get done, and then while you're at the office, you think about that 4:30. But when you're at home,
You don't.
I mean, you stay at work late because you have stuff to do. And I take calls from, I took one last night about 7:30 about a road issue in a eastern Kentucky county. but you don't, and you're already there and your stuff's there, and it's, so yeah, we haven't missed a beat. It's been we're now back in the office though, everybody, except for that one day a week when you get to work from home, and it varies on what your schedule looks like. We're starting to use our training room again. You know, we do a lot of trainings. One thing that's really changed for us is our Keiko Leadership Institute has always been in 5 or 6 locations around the state, 5 or 6 classes. Well, now that we're doing it online, and we've created a small studio at the office, for want of a better term, man, we can offer so many classes. We're doing them in 2-hour, 4-hour blocks. So if a county judge wants to come, or a magistrate, or a county attorney, or whomever, they don't lose their entire day. They can go online and watch 2 hours if they want to, if it's a class they need. We're talking about doing a class on records retention now. KDLA, the Department of Library and Archives, has offered to do one for us. And that's one that everybody uses. You know, I get 2 calls a month probably on that. We've done procurement classes. We've done loss control classes. I'm going to be doing one on ethics codes with the auditor's office here. I think our target date is in October. I don't have the specific dates yet. We're working with them on the schedule because that's apparently going to be an emphasis of theirs going forward. Ethics codes, ethics boards. And so that's something we're going to offer assistance on. We've done that before, but I haven't done a class on it since 17. So, and then we're going to probably start doing one the first year of each term when newly elected officials come in.
What's the, I guess I should know, is the annual conference going to be virtual?
Yeah, we send out an email, and I realize everybody sends out emails now, so they do get lost. We think it's still going to be the end of October. It's not 100% certain yet. We do have to have an annual conference every year, if only because that's when our annual business meeting is, which is when our officers are elected. We'll be losing a magistrate. Magistrate Elbert Bennett out of Caldwell County will be coming off. He's currently past president, and we'll be elected a new second vice president. To elect a second vice president, we have to have a business meeting, so we'll be doing that online. But we're talking about maybe 6 or 8 hours of training involved. Something we traditionally do is offer training because historically you had to come, and we'd have 1,000 people there. When you have 1,000 of our members there, it's an opportunity for folks to learn about things they don't know about. It's also an opportunity historically for you all to talk amongst yourself about how you did a project here. How did you do a road project? How did you know, this is something that you all can talk about once we get all these issues resolved. How did you all come up with this interlocal agreement? How's it working? What changes have you had to see? Those are things that are things that you all know about that our neighboring counties don't. But this is an alternate to the regional jail concept or to some of the other things that our counties are doing. So, yeah, I mean, it's an
I love
educational
the
opportunity.
in-person aspect of the annual conference. I really miss that. I really do, because as everybody knows that's attended, there's great discussion, focused areas of interest there for us to learn a lot. But aside from that, it's just the networking opportunities for us that we have by going in those in-between times to get a lot of information from other counties. And I found that being very educational and beneficial. But I'm looking forward to seeing how the virtual goes. There
Hello.
they are. Sorry.
Hello.
And,
Hello.
as you well know, we have from Boyle County going to be the new incoming president, and I'm hopeful that our delegation can have a little opportunity to enjoy that event in a more than virtual.
No, Magistrate Sammons will be out one more year before he.
Is it one more?
Yeah, Madison County Judge Executive Reagan Taylor was
Is next.
president in the end of October.
Okay.
And then Magistrate Sammons comes on.
All right, okay. So Reagan's next and then Phil.
Yes, sir.
All right, good deal. Well, good evening. I've been tap dancing for 20
Apologies, Judge. I had it on my phone, but I didn't have it on my desk calendar. And I looked at my calendar before I left yesterday, and it was like,
Nothing
I don't
on
have
there.
anything in the morning. So, I had mine on at 11, so I apologize. We're slipping a little bit over in Mercer County.
Well, I'm glad you guys are here, and we don't have to tap dance anymore. we have not discussed anything until you got here, so, because we didn't want to repeat and everything, so. I'm gonna kind of let you, we've gone around the room, Tom's talked, John's talked, Chris has talked. We just kind of talked about the conferences and virtual and all these different kinds of things.
Kim King's wonderful
Kim
initiative over at St.
yeah,
Catherine with
with
the rehab center.
The jail's COVID-free, we talked about that.
The jail being COVID-free, because of the great work for everybody involved. So, last time we all were together, I said I would invite council, to see if he was able to come, and he's been blessed by the CEO and the executive director of CAECO, Jim Henderson, to come, because this is not an adversarial role, it's just it's informational discussion, and that's, so, you can, you guys wanna say anything, and then we'll just turn it over to Rich and let Rich talk a little bit. Does that work?
That's fine.
Okay, Rich, you're on.
Well, first off, thank you all again for inviting me. You know, I didn't want to come in here not knowing anything, so Judge Hunt was kind enough to send me quite a bit of information to read. I've also done some other research, looked at the statutes, looked at the regs. I've emailed with the jailer Wofford, a few times, including as recently, I think, as yesterday, just with some general questions. And we talked, well, I guess I can't point because people don't know who I'm pointing to, but County Attorney Dean and I talked on Friday, and then we talked yesterday, County Attorney Herring. And there's not a whole lot for me to offer. You know, as I told both county attorneys, in my mind, this interlocal agreement is lawful. There are things that if I could go back 22, 23 years, I would have said, hey, maybe we should change some words. You know, the county jailer is the county jailer. You can call, as we've discussed, you can call an apple an orange, but it's still an apple. But again, there's nothing in here that, in my mind, that violates state law. You know, there were questions about the budget preparation. You know, under state law, as you all well know, typically what happens, what's supposed to happen by statute is the county judge, the treasurer, and the jailer get together, I think it's in March, and prepare a draft budget for fiscal court. But that doesn't state that other members can't be present and part of it. And by entering into this interlocal agreement, Boyle County has basically said, we'd also like the county attorney in Mercer, the county judge in Mercer, to be involved in budget prep. Again, could there be some changes in how it's worded? Perhaps there could. But the actual concepts are solid. The fact that it's been on the books now for, I think, 23 years. I think it said November of '96 was maybe the first signature on here. Says it's a lawful agreement. You know, it's not my role to say what's good or bad, because good or bad is subjective, and that's what your all's role is. That's what fiscal court's role is, for respective fiscal courts. But from reviewing this repeatedly, there are a few things in here again, without going too far and rather quick. You know, the split. You all determine that split annually. Who pays what? There's a range in here. This is very similar to a regional jail. You know, that was one of the questions is, can you do this? There's no doubt in my mind you can do this. You know, the statutes talk about two ways of having a jail in general, full service jail. You either have a jail on your own or you have a regional jail. But the Kentucky General Assembly enacted 65-210 to 300, which is the Interlocal Cooperation Act. And it's something that I have a lot of familiarity with. Starting in 2000, the Department for Local Government, where I worked from 98 to 07 when I moved to CAECO, we approved, and DLG still approved, interlocal cooperation agreements. So I was reading 50, 60, 70 of these every year, from 2000 to 2007. And I still look at them, I still read them, because when counties officials call me and say, hey, Rich, is there a way to do this with another county? I help them find out ways to do this. You know, as we mentioned before the meeting started, the General Assembly is very much interested in seeing more interlocal cooperation amongst our local governments. This is something they brought up at least the last couple years. It's actually been brought up for several years. When I was at DLG, I had to testify on interlocal cooperation agreements and the importance thereof. And as money has gotten tighter statewide, even more so important. So there's no doubt in my mind, in an interlocal cooperation agreement, anything a county can do on their own, under 65-210 to 300, they can do it jointly. There may be an exception or two out there. I don't believe this is an exception. So things like budget prep, I don't see that being an issue. You know, if I could go back in time, instead of calling the jailer the chief operating officer, I would just state that the Boyle County jailer shall have care, custody, and control of the jail, because he's still the Boyle County jailer, because it's not a regional jail. In a lot of ways, this committee, in my mind, is more of a advisory committee that makes recommendations. Ultimately, fiscal court still has to approve, right? Fiscal court still controls the fiscal affairs of their respective counties. Mercer County controls Mercer counties. Boyle County controls Boyle counties. You know, the jailer still has care, custody, and control. I know there's some concern that regarding liability. You know, we insure, CAICO has, we will run insurance companies, for one of the better terms. The CAICO All Lines Fund is our property and casualty. CAICO All Lines Fund insures both counties. I looked yesterday. You all have had, historically, a very nice jail. And nice is a relative term when you're talking about a jail. Going in is great if you're a visitor. It's not so much if you're a visitor against your own will. But that's just how it works, right? But you all don't have the claims that a lot of other jails have. And that's because this is a great facility. This is a facility that in my mind, probably could be a model for other jails across the state. And I think some of that probably has to do with the folks in this room. I'm not just saying that because you're here, but also because of how you all operate. You all operate together. That when it comes time to actually run the jail, when it comes time to do the things that have to be done, the jailer does them. You know, whether you all have this interlocal or not, fiscal court has to approve basically the rules and regulations of the jail, the operating. Of course, that's also done under the Department of Corrections. The Department of Corrections runs out, as you might expect. They have a pretty good idea of what they want their jails to do and not to do. You know, they know how many employees need to be on staff based off the size of the jail, based off a variety of things. So they have a pretty good idea of the policies and procedures, but you all still have to approve them, Judge Hunt, as you all well know, on an annual basis. And then he operates the jail, and that really hasn't changed under this agreement. So are there a few things that I might change if I could go back in time? There are. They tend to be minor from a legal standpoint. If this were to go forward another 10, 15, 20 years, I don't see an issue with that. If there's changes that need to be made, and I think you all have made changes over the years, and every year you all review the costs. So again, I think this is a lawful deal. It's just a matter of making sure it's something that you all can agree on going forward. Beyond that, I'm happy to take questions, but I think at this point, I think it's up to you all.
Rich, to use the judge's word in 2 or 3 of our meetings, if you have some citations there that we could consider, we know that we had some that we kind of penciled and yellow lined in our last session, but have your perspective without our influence would be interesting.
You know, the reality is there's only a couple chapters that deal with deals. Well, there's more than a couple. But for the operation of, we're talking a couple what is it? I brought some statutes with me. You know, 71 is the basic do more who they hire, who gets hired, how they're hired. Then you go to 441. Chapter 441 is the jail operations chapter. And then you can go in and look at some of the regs, and I can send you the regulation sites if you need them. I think both county attorneys have them. And, you know, and it's an interesting thing. You know, regulations cannot change a statute, right? Regulations, when I teach classes on this, I like to think of it as a book. You have the Constitution, which is the general concepts, right? Then you have the chapters, that's like the statutes. And then when you get to the nuts and bolts, maybe the footnotes, right, are the regulations. Tells you, fills in the blanks. And there are things that are still, sometimes you wonder if it's still questionable, how states looking at things. For example, there's a strong argument that, I know psychological care was an issue last year, a year before, that statute mandates psychological care. But then when you look at the regs, and there's a regulation that deals, and I'm going to call it inmate bill of rights for one of a better term, right? And one of the things it says, and it lists everything that the inmate's supposed to have. But when you look at psychological care, the language they use makes it look discretionary. And not every jail in the state has offered that in the past. Don't get me wrong, from a CAECO standpoint, I talked with our jail consultant, who is a retired DOC jail inspector, who works with a national group and has testified all over the country on jail issues. We strongly recommend that you have some psychological care in the jail. After all, so many of our inmates do need it. You know, we talked about drug issues. There's all sorts of issues out there, and we all know that without going into that. So there's always still questions, Magistrate, to get to your point. But again, I think this is a good agreement, or this is a good agreement. Could it be tweaked? Of course. I mean, it's 23 years old. Anything can be tweaked over 23 years. But I do think it's maybe perhaps a model for the rest of the Commonwealth, that y'all are working together to deal with this issue. And, you know, I would have mentioned, counties that don't have jails a lot of times have trouble finding places to put their inmates. They may have to drive an inmate 150 miles, 200 miles to get that inmate a facility. Y'all have been able to work together to build a jail, pay off a bond, update the jail. Again, the fact that we talked
Still need to
earlier,
update a little
you've
bit
only
more.
had a couple COVID cases,
Yeah.
which for a jail is pretty awesome. Kentucky as a whole, I think, our local facilities has done a good job with that. But they've only had a couple cases, and to be COVID-free right
You're
now,
right, man.
knock on wood, is an accomplishment in and of itself. So again, to me, this is a good deal. It's just a matter of how you all want to go forward with it.
I think on July 15th, I think the interlocal statutes were amended. Do you think that any of those amendments affect our agreement in any way?
Not really. Most of the amendments, I don't have it in front of me. Actually, I think I do have well, I thought I brought 260 with me, but I don't think I did. 260, if I'm not going off the top of my head, is the interlocal statute that states what has to be in the agreement. And while there have been some changes to it, there have also been some changes into how you add a party, or things of that nature. Those don't really seem to hurt your all's agreement. So again, I don't see those amendments being problematic. Again, if we were going to dig down deep into the nuts and bolts right now, maybe that's part of what we should be doing or whatnot. But no, the short answer is I don't think the statutory changes necessarily hurt this agreement.
Can you tell us what tweaks that you would recommend?
Well, I'm not going to go into all the procedural stuff, because those are some of those things that you all have to decide. But if you were to open this up, and it's an ordinance, so you would have to pass another ordinance
In each
jointly.
court.
Sorry?
In each court?
Yes, because you're both parties.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And when you make changes to it, you're going to have to go to the Department for Local Government and get their approval. They're the approval authority. Any time an interlocal agreement involves a county and a city, if it involves another party, a state, a district, then it would go to the Attorney General. But
even in the most minor.
well, if you add a party, it doesn't.
Huh?
If you add a party, it doesn't have to go to DLG for approval,
Okay.
but they still get notice. Even if I was adding a party, I'd still probably call over to DLG, talk to one of the attorneys there, and make sure that you're not missing anything. Because, you know, when I was working there, when I was doing these, after a county puts so much effort into something, to have to turn it down because of a procedural error, it's just a shame. So I would still talk and make sure, but by and large, if you all make changes here, you're gonna probably have to run it back to DLG and get their approval again. That's not a problem. Again, you can show it to them ahead of time. They can tell you if they see an issue. Then when you pass your ordinance, you send it to them, and you make your filings with the Secretary of State and clerk's offices. You know, again, one thing I think I probably would do is the Chief Operating Officer. That's a fine title. But if you're gonna open it up anyway, I would just get rid of the titles that don't really need to be there. You know, I'm sure they modeled this off of the regional jail concept at the time. But he's still the jailer. He's still running the jail. None of that has changed. It's the apple is still an apple, no matter what you call it.
I think that in alone in itself, just recognizing that nomenclature would have to make him feel better, because he's not the chief operating officer, i.e. in a regional jail, which doesn't even have to be a Kentucky recognized jailer.
Correct. So again, I don't know that he's going to feel better or worse. I'm not sure that that's as much of a concern as it is an issue of. I think it's just proper. He's the jailer. He was elected to be jailer.
Yeah.
We don't call the Mercer County jailer just transport officer. He's still the Mercer County jailer, even though his job duties are primarily transport. One of the other things I might change is I might recognize in the fact that while statute specifically I believe it's in the budgetary chapter, specifically states that the jailer, it's in 441, that the jailer, the treasurer, and the county judge are required to start working on the budget, I think prior to April 1. I think it's April 1. I'd go ahead and recognize the fact that fiscal court has the right to add additional parties. And so I'd just spell it out, maybe just a little clearer in reference to statute, that in accordance with the statute and upon the wishes of both parties, the Mercer County Judge Executive and the Mercer County Attorney shall also be parties to the jail budgetary process. And actually, you would have to add the Boyle County Attorney as well. Because the statute
we
just
always have
references.
been.
Well, I'm
that's
just
made-
saying,
it's worked
I'm just saying to
for 20
spell it out.
Right.
2 years.
That way there's no question of whether or not it's lawful, because I think that issue was raised. Is it lawful that how it's done now? The reality is I think it is lawful, but if you're going to make the change anyway, or make changes anyway, why not go ahead and spell it out that in accordance with 441 point whatever, and upon the wishes of, and in accordance with state law and the Interlocal Cooperation Act, we also hereby add Mercer County Judge Executive, Mercer County Attorney, Boyle County Attorney as parties to work with the jailer, Boyle County Attorney, Boyle County Treasurer in
And just
preparation
a
of the jail
restatement of what
budget.
we've been doing.
And I'd like to come clear on that point of once that budget with the authority of the folks who are on the joint jail committee. I hope I'm hearing you correctly. To draw a parallel, you can't build a small home or a large industrial park without change orders. Eventualities take place, especially when you have something like our detention center. But I know in conversations, and by the way, I'm chair, so I feel some added responsibility at the table here. If we had language in there with full daily operational authority of the jailer, I think that would go a long way. Again, understanding that significant, i.e. COVID-19 issues come up to where we felt obligated to talk about them today. But if there were language in the contract like that, if we're going to do some tweaking, I think that would tell the world and our jailer and his staff what their opportunities, accountabilities, and responsibilities are in full. And I think that would satisfy some of his concerns.
I'm not going to say yay or nay to the language you just spouted, and I say that with all respect. Sometimes I use words that maybe I shouldn't use after I say them when spouted. But having said that,
Guilty as charged.
yes, sir. Having said that, there's ways that you all can word it. You all can state that the jailer shall still have the care, custody, and control of the jail, which is what the statute says in 71. That this body is still there to assist. This body is still there to help in the preparation of the rules and regulations of the jail, which is already happening. It's just a little wordsmithing, I think, is what it comes down to. Again, since the questions are raised, it doesn't hurt if you're going to go back into it to clarify exactly what each thing means. And I'm sure 23 years ago this wasn't really a thought. Nobody had done this before. If I write something and I go back to it a week later, even a day later, I always tweak it. I write articles for the County Line, our trade magazine. And if she didn't tell me I had a deadline, every day if I went back, I'd make changes because that's just how it is. I think every attorney's like that. Maybe not every attorney, I shouldn't say that, but I think a lot of us are like that. We're never completely satisfied. Again, does this have to be changed? No, it doesn't. But if we wanted to be a little more clear, there's nothing wrong with being more clear. Additional clarity never hurts anything.
You bet, John?
Did you, and don't anybody misunderstand the reason I posed this question, okay? It's just for clarity's sake. Because Ted did a great job at y'all's last meeting, about explaining the way everybody needed to feed money in order to support the bond, and he did a good job explaining that. That's why that was written back then. But the bond's been paid off. Should there be anything addressing that area that if somebody, once again, not suggesting it, but termination, should that be part of maybe a rewording and rewriting, and it be explained how that procedure would happen?
You know, that's a judgment call of this body and of the respective fiscal courts.
Well-
It's not a legal issue. Do I think this provision is lawful, Section 6, termination of agreement?
Yeah.
I do think it's lawful. I don't think there's in my mind, it's a very tough termination provision. It was put in place, I'm sure, 23 years ago to make sure that you all weren't sitting there alone.
The staying power.
Yeah.
Stuck with those bond payments.
Ted did a
On
good
your own.
job of talking about that.
And-
Yes, he did, he did.
And can you change the termination of agreement provision? Obviously you can, but that's a judgment call. And while it is a tough provision, I think it's probably a lawful provision. Ultimately, only a circuit court can make that determination. But I tend to think a circuit court is going to look at it in the totality of the circumstances. That at one point in time, this termination provision was probably a very strong provision. And I'm not saying this because I favor one party or the other, because I don't. Ultimately, I'm going to go home and eat dinner and be happy, and y'all will still be here to deal with the issue, right? So it's not in my job description to favor one versus the other. But in my mind, I think a court, when it looks at the totality of the circumstances, and obviously Chris and Ted can disagree with me, I think they're to look at the fact that Mercer County may have had some opportunities 15 years ago to back out. You know, Lincoln County could have called them. Casey County could have called them. I'm just throwing counties out, semi-close, and said, hey, we'll give it to you. If you want to come and we could use some prisoners, $20 a head, which, depending on the year, might have been a really good deal. But this agreement might have put some road bumps in the way, right?
I think it's why, what basically Ted explained is that it made, everybody was gonna be in for at least 20 years, and then after that, and that's the only reason I bring it up, because the lay of the land has changed just a little bit. Should that be part of any changes we're gonna make?
You know, that's just it's a judgment call. You know, maybe you decide that you all want to go forward for another 5-10 years. Maybe you all decide you want to go forward for another 20 years. Maybe this termination provision stays in place for a set number of years, and then maybe you all agree to renegotiate at that point. It's a judgment call. Maybe you decide this is still a good deal. I mean, if I was sitting on the Mercer County side, and if I had had that opportunity, I might be more hesitant to want to change this provision right now. Because after all, if I'm the Mercer County attorney or the Mercer County judge executive or magistrate from District 1 or 2, I don't know which district you have. 5, my favorite district.
Thank you.
As long as you're the only one here. I might feel that my citizens deserve additional benefit under the terms of this contract. I may feel that way, and justifiably so. And if the situation were reversed, if 23 years ago they had decided to build the jail in Mercer County and not Boyle County, I have a feeling you all would feel the same way, that the Boyle County citizenry deserve maybe a little more benefit out of that. Having said that, that's ultimately your all's judgment call. And then that's just what y'all are going to have to make. So that's the call you all have to make in this room and amongst your separate fiscal courts.
You know, it's worthy of at least a thought process is that there will be a time, and maybe not the too distant future, that we're going to have to update our detention center facilities. And there's a goal and an aspiration to do that in the near term. Having a partnership like we have had, it solidifies the participation of both counties to agree upon that route. And I guess if we looked at a bond issue, for whatever amount that may be, it would be primarily on Boyle County's shoulders, but the fact that Mercer is by interlocal agreement adds relative additive strength to the position of going forward. Is that a way to say it? Is that,
Sure.
am I making sense when I
Yeah,
say it?
financially, you all are significantly stronger with Mercer County's participation as far
I
as
have to
bonds,
think so.
as far as bonding goes, and debt service and debt payment. That insulates both counties as far as the up and down of our payroll, net profit, and revenue streams.
And the other thing to think about, since you're talking about debt service and whatnot, you have to remember, counties are limited. Cities, it varies based upon population size, but counties are limited to 2% debt, a 2% debt cap, as compared to the real property within the community. Combined, you all have much greater strength. Now, again, both counties are very, very well run, and I don't say that because you all are in here, but that's just the fact of the matter. And I don't think either county, I didn't go back and look, but I don't think either county is pressing up against their debt cap. But that is something down the road that may have to happen, that you may want to do. You know, I look at counties that have some good jails, larger jails. You know, Shelby County and Oldham County have both recently remodeled, and remodeled is a nice word, but they've enlarged their jails because of things that they wanted to be able to do, whether it was increase their SAT program, the substance abuse program, or some other things. And it wouldn't be surprised down the road, because your jail now is apparently 20 plus years old, right? 21, 22 years old.
Showing the signs of it.
And there are things that probably have to change. You know, the jail populations are down right now because of COVID. My suspicion is the jail populations, they may not go back to where they were, but they're going to go back up. Once we're into next year, and hopefully there's not a cure, at least a shot to make this a lesser of an issue. You know, you all run a good jail, and I think there are counties without jails that might look at your all's facility and say, you know what, our prisoners end up there, they're going to be better off than maybe in some other places, because there's more opportunities. You know, if you don't get, and I'm sure you two can preach it, but way better than I can, if you don't get your folks off drugs, they're just going to turn around and come back 3 months later, 6 months later. Some cases I've seen a week later, right? Some of them don't even make it a day out. So if you can't get them into some sort of substance abuse program, and a lot of times it has to be at the facility, sometimes in a separate building on the facility, sometimes there's a separate dorm for them on the facility. If you don't do that, it's just it's a perpetual thing. So those are some things out there that doing together maybe works for you.
I feel like we can all agree that under Barry Harmon, Jailer Harmon, and under Jailer Walford, that aspect of trying to return people that come to our detention center to a cleaner, more wholesome life is part of the rehab substance abuse programs that the jailer has initiated, and is working hard with some contracts to make sure that we're doing the responsible thing in our area. I feel like we're going not above and beyond, but we're doing a really good job of addressing those concerns, so we don't have a revolving door in the court system down the road. And that's a taxpaying saver, saving money for our taxpayers if we can help facilitate a cleaner lifestyle. So I think we're on the right path in that regard, and I attribute that to Harmon and Walford's initiatives and the things that they've done throughout their career. Guys?
Rich, I'm going to ask you to step out on a limb a little bit, and if you're completely off base, then I won't hold it against you.
I was hoping you were going to say step out of the room, but I guess
No, not yet.
They're thrown out of the room.
Do you have any thoughts with your crystal ball, which is just as hazy as mine and everybody else in the room, with where the Commonwealth is going as far as sort of their mandates for incarceration? Do you see us go into like a forced regional jail model, or Do you think that the legislature is just gonna kind of continue with sort of a laissez-faire attitude and keep hands off, as far as burdens on us for programs or big changes as far as Class C and Ds, which we still derive revenue off of? I won't call it income since we're keeping inmates for about $20 a day, less than what they really cost us. Do you have any thoughts on where we're headed?
Yeah, I don't have a crystal ball, but I will say a few things. One, me personally, I don't right now see some people have talked about a state takeover of county jails. I don't see that happening at this point. Part of that, to my mind, is, while you all don't have a bond issue out right now, there is a lot of debt statewide attributable to jails. You know, from the regional jail model, when I started back in 1998 at DLG, the Department of Local Government, and the state local debt officer who approves debt issuances is out of the state, or is out of the Department for Local Government. That is where that function is administrated. We only had about 40 jails. In 98 or 99, I wrote a draft memo that was signed by then Corrections Commissioner Sapp and DLG Commissioner Bob Arnold, telling counties, don't build jails. Right now, the state has plenty of prisoners for you, but we can't guarantee it. It's not a money maker. That was with about 40 jails in the state. Now we have approximately double that number. I think we have 4 regional jails. I think the most recent was in Bourbon County, Bourbon and Nicholas, maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago. And that jail already existed. They just decided to go with the regional jail model, and Nicholas came in with them, since you need at least 2 counties for that to work statutorily. I don't see mandated regional jails, if that's what you're asking, Ted. Again, part of the problem is there's only 100 of them. I can't say only 120 counties. There are 120 counties. And when you knock out Louisville and Lexington, you have 118 counties and approximately 80 jails, of which, I think Kentucky River is a 3 or 4 county jail. There's one out of Johnson County, which is a 3 or 4 county jail. Three Forks, which is Lee, Owsley, and Wolf. So you're already taking out another 10 counties, and I've already mentioned the 2 county out of Bourbon. So you're already knocking out 10 or more counties there. So now you're down to about 108 counties, 107 counties that don't have jails or current arrangements other than contract. I think we're probably looking at this type of situation going forward. I mean, I will say we hear this every year, that the state may do this or that. I don't see the state taking Class Ds and Cs away right now. The number of Class Ds and Cs may go down, depending on whether or not there's drug reform. But I will tell you that the Jailers Association, CACO, county judges, the magistrates, all lobby heavily on behalf of our counties and on the things. And when I say lobby, I don't mean that in the way sometimes people think about it. That just like I think county officials know best what's best for counties, because you all do this every single day. I tell newly elected officials when you come in, congratulations. You just took a 24/7 job where people are going to talk to you about their issue, whether you're at the grocery store, whether it's 10:30 at night. They have your number. They know where you are. They know how to find you. And you took a job as CEO of a business that has 30,000 people, 28 or 29,000 people in your all's case. I forget what your all's population is. So it's and by that same token, what I'm getting at is I think the associations have a really good idea, because we're made up of you all. You all employ us. You all sit on our boards. You all tell us. And I think you sat on KMCA's board before. I know Magistrate Salmons has. County attorneys as well, their association. And our legislators call us and ask us to come testify. They call us and ask us to come talk about issues. So right now, I just don't see things changing to a major degree, if that's what you're asking. So if I was getting paid by the word, I'd be a millionaire, right? But I think right now, I think what you're looking at, unless there's just a major change, I think you're looking at the status quo for a while.
Okay. Because that's the when we had our consultant come in, you know, one of the things that they did talk about was that field of dreams type thing for a jail. If you build it, they will come, and maybe not experience in the Commonwealth, but in other places that, well, sometimes you build it and they don't come, and then you're stuck with the bond service. And I know there's been discussions on drug reform, on penal reform. Every time I see the Boyle County representative, I discuss with him that in 22 years of practice, they've increased the per diem. I think it'd be fair to say that they've increased it 3 times and then rescinded one increase, and so we're still at the same 31, 34 a day as far as the state goes. And you know, that was great when your costs were low, when you were making a couple of bucks a day, or that was tolerable when you were overpopulation by 125 and they were all state inmates, and so you had that additional revenue come in. But I was just curious if you had any crystal ball, or thought, you know, KCO was going to be advocating to take us a different route.
You know, we've advocated for increase in the per diem. You know, we realize the state prisons are not going away. State prisons are going to stay state prisons. There were a couple that were closed down a few years ago. They were operated by a private sector entity. But I tend to think, and I think there's a lot of belief out there, that keeping your Class Ds close to home, where they have hopefully a support network, is a plus. And I just don't see that aspect of it changing. You know, the big unknown is, again, will we see incarceration numbers like we have seen in the past? Those numbers have come down significantly. I didn't bring the stats with me, but the number, our jail population has come down quite a bit. And I'm speaking of our local facility jail population. I'm sure you all have seen it. But again, I can only go off history, and history says we tend to fill up our jails.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Gentlemen, what do you think? I'm still encouraged by what I've heard, that I would like to at least continue for another few meetings in this to see if there's some things we want to change. And if we do, then we have to take it to DOJ or whoever and go through that process. But guys, I'm thinking just some minor tweaks, some verbiage, or, you know, that one sentence I talked about in 4C about the committee's oversight or approval of the administrative, the procedures, the operational, and the grievances and all that kind of stuff. It kind of tended for me to lean toward that being the jailer's responsibility, no matter who's in charge of the financial oversight of where our dollars are going on a regular basis. Yeah. I'd still like to at least consider that.
And understand, I'm not saying no. It usually takes me a day or two, Jay, to kind of, you know, I have epiphanies in the shower at about 5:15 every morning. So if you come up College Street, you hear Eureka, you know what it is. My kind of initial concern with that, after I formulated it through, and we were discussing liability, you know, and Brian's thought that, you know, hey, Mercer County has no liability, but they can influence policy. Subtracting that line almost does the inverse of that, whereas Mercer County has liability, but we have no voice in how those things are done. But certainly the grievance policy, those things that are covered in that chapter of the interlocal agreement can have some pretty profound impact on our liability. So
that could get very close to day-to-day operational issues that I, as chair, and I know our jailer and deputy jailer feel is sacred ground. On liability, I was going to loop back, Rich. What's the level or what's the package for our jailer, our deputy jailer, and even the staff members in terms of their liability, or does it all accrue back to a claim comes to this court?
You know, for the most part,
personal liability.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Obviously, we insure the jails, which primarily means the counties. But there is some coverage, definitely for the elected official. You know, if you all were to get sued, the way I see it happening, would be a suit filed against the county jailer, and probably would name the Boyle County Fiscal Court and you all by name, just because that's how that would be done. But unless it's something completely and totally egregious, it's going to be a suit in their professional capacities. Oftentimes, if we see a suit filed against an office holder in their professional and personal, and it's not unusual to see that, one of the first things we do is try to get the personal capacity suit tossed out. I mean, and we've been very successful in that. There's a reason I think why we have, and I'm not advertising Keiko here, maybe I'm a little bit. I think we have 115 of the 118 eligible counties right now. I think there's only 3 that we don't insure, and that's part of the reason is we deal with this on a daily basis, and jail claims happen. So I regardless of whether, if you all hadn't done this 23 years ago, the liability doesn't change, right? The one area where maybe this is a plus for Boyle County is that if your claims went through the roof, you know, a jail is a reflection of their jailer, by and large. If you get a good jailer in, things can be really, really nice. And y'all have been very lucky the last 2 jailers, the current and the prior, were good jailers and ran good jails. If you get a bad jailer in, and to be jailer, you have to be a resident of the state, a resident of the county, you have to be of a certain age. I could be a jailer if I lived here, but I wouldn't know how to run a jail. And you wouldn't want me in there running the jail, right? I wouldn't want me in there running the jail if I was a taxpayer. So, but if something were to happen in 2 years, if the jailer decided not to run again, and you all ended up getting someone who wasn't as good as he is, and there were several big claims, when you all go back and negotiate the price for the next year, that's something you all can take into consideration. And that's something that I think does help protect you all quite a bit. You know, and just to go back to what Ted was saying just now, regardless of how you all decide to do the rules and regulations of the jail, ultimately, the jailer's still going to have the care, custody, and control of the jail. You know, the kick is, and I guess that's maybe the sticking point, is in a county, let's take Lincoln County. Fiscal court approves the rules and regulations for the Lincoln County Jail. And then the jailer has the care, custody, and control based off those rules. That's really no different than here. Ultimately, this committee, I'm not going to say makes a recommendation because that's not how it's worded, but they do go through it all. Let's see here. For the successful operation of the jail, and shall submit the same to the Joint Committee for approval. But that's not the final approval, after which the same shall be submitted to the Boyle County Fiscal Court for final approval. If the Boyle County Fiscal Court I'm speaking of here, thought that the policy was too strict or it wasn't strict enough, they can say no. Now, where you go from there, I don't know. But my suspicion is this board said okay with this committee, and then Boyle County's always approved. But if you all came up with something that was just awful, that Boyle County couldn't agree with, that would be a problem. And again, I think the reason the language is in here like this, Boyle County for final approval, is because you're not a regional jail. And ultimately, Mercer County cannot bind Boyle County. That's why I like to say this is more of a, not an advisory, because you have more role than just an advisory role. But it's not a final approval authority. So again, that's just something to think about. That's a section where, again, if Boyle County were to say no, then I guess Ted and Chris would have to put their heads together to figure where you go next. And one thing I would say is, you don't have to try to figure out everything that needs to be in a policy, everything that needs to be in an ordinance. One of the things I'm a firm believer is you don't want to always put yourself in a corner where you don't have the discretion to go left or go right, where your only discretion is to go forward. That doesn't always work. You know, people elected you all to be able to make those decisions as they come up. I suspect part of the reason this thing has lasted 20-plus years is that you all have had some discretion to maybe do things that Tony Wilder and his crew in Boyle County back 20-plus years ago, and I don't recall who was judge executive in Mercer back then, intentionally or otherwise, were wise enough not to try to dot every single I, so you all can still have some discretion.
I like the simpler gonna be approach to that, be flexible. Well, gentlemen, that's 11:10. What's your pleasure? Comments? Go around the room.
You're good.
Very good.
Wayne?
The way we're going.
Judge?
Thumbs up.
Chris?
I just appreciate Rich coming today. I mean, he's enlightened us, and I think he's a fair, like, neutral party that's gonna tell us like it is. And,
I appreciate that.
that's what we needed, so thank you for coming today.
My pleasure.
I think I appreciate Rich coming, plus, you got out of Frankfurt. You can't be any better than that,
No, I
can it?
can't.
I mean,
Didn't hardly get
he's
you.
buying everybody's lunch today.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
he'd expect that big burger at home today.
The last time I came here, Howard bought me a hot dog, so take that for what you will.
Went over to Frank's before it closed. He's not there anymore. You get a healthy shape now in the same location.
Healthy is a terrible idea.
Well, guys, what I'd like to do, if it's okay with you, is keep this going. And I guess we need to go through it chapter and verse again and just see if there's any tweaks. If we want to change it, chief operating officer to a jailer. If we want to change this to that. If we don't, we don't. But, then we can kind of collectively agree upon it. But I like having all the magistrates that want to participate and can participate to be in here so we know, we have a greater feeling for both courts' attitude. And so, let's look at our calendars and see when we want to meet again next. And we're not going to do this forever and ever. We're going to have to get to a point where we can move on. So, calendar-wise, I'm gonna be unavailable on 10/11. Other than that, anytime in the next couple of weeks, we do have. What are y'all doing on court? Are you moving things around because of the holiday? We're looking at going from the 8th to the 15th and then to the 29th.
We're not changing the 8th, but we probably will go to the 29th.
Okay.
We've got joint jail, it looks like, on the 18th. So I would suggest maybe we go past that joint, go past that joint jail date.
So do we want to consider this as Tuesday? How about, now we got court, let's see,
22nd?
we're gonna move it off the 22nd, so we could do it on Tuesday, the 22nd. Does that work for you guys? John, Tom, everybody?
What time, Judge, shall I get it right this time?
Is it okay if we meet here at 10:00 on the 22nd?
So you're saying we don't have fiscal court?
We don't have physical court that
And we're
day.
not gonna have it either.
It'll
We'll
be
probably
moved
move ours
to,
to the
the
29th too, so we
Alright.
pay
I
all
won't
the
be
bills.
here for the 29th.
You won't be?
No, because Patrick's
a lot of
going to
bills.
training and I'll be having to conduct court, so.
Okay, all right. Just so you know, we'll be without our attorney on the 29th, but I think that still works. Okay, what'd you say?
22nd at 10 o'clock.
22nd at 10 o'clock right here.
I've texted my secretary, and
Write
she's
it on
more
your- write
efficient
it on
than
your
I am.
desk calendar.
She's
This is
yeah. She'll have me, Judge.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have anything else? If there's no other statements, I think this has been a very beneficial learning experience for me. I appreciate, again, Rich Ornstein from KCO, Kentucky Associated Counties, being here and providing a very unbiased neutral approach to our longstanding interlocal agreement, so we know how we want to proceed from here better. So if there's nothing else, we don't really, this is kind of just an informal committee. We'll just stand in adjournment if nobody has anything. And appreciate again, Rich, you being there. Thank you
Yep.
for your time.
Thanks.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.